This episode of the Boat Geeks is sponsored by The Boater's Guide, a free app for Pacific Northwest boaters. The Boater's Guide is adventure and information, right at your fingertips, right when you need it. Find your happy place with The Boater's Guide, a free download on your phone or tablet in the App Store and Google Play.
Bruce Schwab. Now, this is a name you knew a lot better than I do, but now I feel like I know Bruce. And that whole racing world. But what an amazing guest.
Yeah. And you learned how to pronounce Vendee.
Yeah. I mean, I knew going in, but I knew I was going to also forget how to pronounce it correctly. But anyway, that's what I'm here for. I'm here to make the mistakes.
You represent the sponge element. Yes. You are soaking up everything because you're still fairly new to the whole boating world. And it's fun to watch you get all of this, and you're so enthusiastic, and it's contagious.
Well, I think a lot about boating is contagious, but when you have a guest like Bruce, who is just obviously known all around the world, accomplished something that no American had accomplished yet, which is a big deal. And he's such a humble and nice person. It was just a really enjoyable episode for me, and I did learn a lot about sailing and racing. And
and anybody can learn from Bruce now with OceanPlanet Energy because he's a guru now.
He is
of energy storage systems on boats, and so he can design an entire system for your boat. He's a pretty smart fellow. Yeah, so this is episode 5 with Bruce Schwab.
Welcome to the next episode of the Boat Geeks podcast. I am your host, Darren.
And I'm your other host, Darren.
And today we have a very special guest, Bruce Schwab. He is probably well known for his guitar playing and his bicycle racing, but also he happens to do some sailing and some ocean racing. Bruce Schwab has circumnavigated the world twice, becoming both the 240th person to do that, as well as the 254th person to do that. Amazing. And then you were the first American to officially finish the Vendee Globe in the 2004-2005 race.
Yes, Vendee.
Speak of French.
So as we always say also, I'm the noob in this podcast, and Darren's going to know how to pronounce everything. I'm going to get everything wrong for, the first 100 episodes or whatever. But that's okay. I'm learning, and I learned a lot about that race that I didn't know just listening to other podcasts that you've been on. And you still own the boat Improbable, correct? That's one of your...
Well, I now own it.
You bought it back?
My dad had it. Oh, I got it when my dad passed away.
Okay.
So that's the boat that I had before all that other around the world stuff happened. I have a boat now, and that's over in Anacortes. So.
Okay, yeah. I knew there was a local boat that was tied to you. And now you work with OceanPlanet Energy with Nigel Calder is one of your partners. Mm-hmm. And you're very much into electrical systems and kind of the future of powering boats, which is something we definitely want to get into. You are a geek like we are. We're a boat geek and a power systems geek and all that kind of stuff. Love it. But before we get into that, let's do a little bit of just finding out how you became the person that you are today. And the question I like to start with everybody, because we are the boat geeks, we love boats. Why do you love boats? What is it about boats that you love? How did you get into boating and it become such a big part of your life?
That's hard to explain.
Yeah, it's a lot. I know your history goes way back.
We got time.
My dad, who grew up in Illinois, became a nut about boats. And when we moved to the West Coast, and I was born in 1960, and we moved to the West Coast, and he wound up the first boat he bought in Marina del Rey. and didn't even tell my mom. And
it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission.
Right off the bat,
that's a '60s thing.
Yes,
right off the bat, he said a bad example, and he didn't know much about sailing at all. He reported to me at one point. He says, "Yeah, we found out the first time we went sailing, everyone was staring at him and pointing at him and laughing, and they had the jib up upside down."
Oh my! That sounds like something I would do. Yeah. What kind of boat was that first?
It was a Baltic Sea cruiser, which amazingly enough is actually a pretty decent little boat. There are not very many of them around. You'd have to research that to know what they are, but they're a hard chine boat. So he was lucky, got a good boat then. And then he wound up selling it, and they were together for a while. But then they eventually divorced when I was 9, and he went up to the San Juan Islands.
Local.
He worked for Boeing, and he had got a classic catch cruiser type boat, and Chris sailed around with that for a while. And he tried to take it to Hawaii, had an unsuccessful trip, like a lot of cruising trips are. They don't end well. It wasn't a very good sailing boat, really. It looked nautical, chains on the bowsprit. And, people walk down the dock and, there's a well, didn't have a high enough ballast ratio. Yeah. And, internal ballast shifted. So they limped into California from this failed trip. And then he wound up selling it. And that's when I joined him when I was 13. And we drove across the U.S. in a Volkswagen van with all our possessions and the East Coast, and searched around there, and he bought East Coast boat. And so I guess the answer to your question is my dad got me into it through his own foibles and follies. And we had a thing, like every time we'd start sailing, we'd have to come back to fix something for a while. We were in Florida for like 6 months working on this boat, and we went to the Bahamas and had to turn around and come back, bunched a bunch of stuff, lost the dinghy. And then we finally got to the Bahamas, and we were there for like 6 months working on the boat, installing laminated frames. Went to Jamaica where we could pull out of the water while we were living on it. Installed 21 new laminated frames, keep the thing from leaking. That boat was finally all done. We sailed down the Panama Canal, up the coast. So it was this whole 3-year cruise. Time is half of 8th grade, all the 9th grade, and half of 10th grade.
But you got the best education of your life during that period.
If I was going to be a boat geek, yes.
But now,
which is where I am now.
This boat is just, at this point, you're a kid. It's just your life. It's your daily life.
Yeah.
Do you, at any point during this 3-year experience, fall in love with boats? Like, is there a point where you go,
I was nuts
boating,
about them. I was nuts
right
about
away.
the physical action of sailing itself was a thing for me. Not so much the lifestyle, like I think it is for a lot of people, it's the lifestyle.
Yeah.
But for me, it was the actual sailing itself. So I always dreamed of racing. And I would read about racing boats in the magazines. I always wanted to go faster. I knew about Improbable. I read about the boat Improbable in Yachting Magazine before...
It's a famous boat.
My dad had heard of it before we ever saw it, and then I saw a picture of it in the Montego Bay Yacht Club in Jamaica when we were doing a cruise around the island before we left. And this is when was this? In 74, 75. And the boat had won the Miami Montego Bay race in 71. And I'd read about it in Yachting Magazine. It's like, that's a cool boat. So years later, when my dad's looking for a bigger boat, we're in California. Improbables for sale, and I go, Dad, that's the boat. He's like, no, that's a race boat. I love to do it. We're going to race that. Well, then we were hanging out in Morro Bay, and he'd been looking at some boats in Southern California. We're working our way up the coast, and we're hanging out in Morro Bay, and we tried to go another classic. We go out. We try to make our way north. The boat's hobby horsing. If you've tried to sail up the coast from,
I can only imagine. I haven't.
Yeah. It's brutal. It's hard to get up the coast. And so we were going to wait for the wind to die. We went back, our tail between our legs, hung out in Morro Bay, and we learned how to do this. It's actually the smart thing to do, right?
Failure is a great way to learn.
Yeah, or just
my whole life.
Back off, try again later, and in comes in the harbor. I see Improbable comes in looking for a place to tie up. They're taking up the coast. We saw it in Southern California, and I waved. All right, that's a cool boat. And Raph's up next to us, and they spent the night in the hotel. And they took off the next day. And my dad's like, that lightweight racing boat isn't gonna, make it out there. And they never came back. We found out. We had to deliver it back in time for the race. There was no big deal, Wow. And so we actually went sailing on it when we got up to the Bay Area. We did a Farallon's race on it. I think both my dad and I got seasick then. And but Dave Allen, the owner of the boat, he's a really nice guy. And in fact, just a weird coincidence, just last week, I met his son-in-law who had been on the boat before my dad bought it. He was up Cape Anacortes with my friend Ernie Hammer.
Wow.
And he got to look at Improbable. He says, I haven't seen this boat since before your dad bought it.
I love boats with history like that, where so many people know about it.
And so it was really nice to talk to him and talk about Dave Allen, who's passed away now, and what a great guy Dave Allen. He made it possible for my dad to buy the boat. He gave him a good deal. And tolerated at the San Francisco Yacht Club in Tiburon is some of the most valuable real estate in the world there.
Sure, of course.
Us crazy, barefoot skateboarding kids, running around the yacht club and doing all stuff, moving from our old boat to the Improbable. And I lived on that boat. We brought it up the coast then, and we did some racing with it as a family. And I lived on it when I went to high school in Ballard.
Wow, that's cool.
And my dad kept it. So that was Ballard High School, class of '78. And then my dad took it down to Southern California, and he was in Santa Cruz, and I wound up joining him there for a while before I wound up moving off and moved to Santa Cruz myself. And he went, he worked in the aerospace industry. So he kept that boat all that time. So I went off the boat, went on to other things in life, guitar playing and bike racing and working on boats.
We'll talk about that. So now the racing, what do you think it was about the racing that you enjoyed? Did you do anything, were you doing anything else in your life that gave you that same feeling, racing your bicycle or
Yes,
surfing
definitely.
or something that gave you?
Definitely the sense. I like bike racing. I like, I like riding in general, fast, but I like the competition too, where you can, it's the mental aspect of it. Obviously with sailing, the mental aspect is greater than the physical part, whereas cycling, it's,
right.
But there's still a whole lot of tactics and thought and presence of mind in bike racing, especially in cyclocross, which is what I do now. It's so much technique that you can always do better. But in sailing, there's so much data to process and things to analyze when you race that it's
and especially
you
when
get
you
hooked on
race by yourself. I mean, you're a solo racer, and it's all down to you.
Was.
Well, yeah, you were.
Yeah. Well, it's I wound up doing my first solo race in the Bay Area in 1984 against my dad. He was on Improbable, and I borrowed my boss's boat, Svensson. I worked for 20 years in California for Svensson's Marine.
Yeah. And
I borrowed his boat, and he said, "You can take the boat, but if you break it, you fix it." Okay, okay, Sven, gotcha. And I wound up winning the whole thing.
Oh, really?
Fun. Yeah. My dad and I bet the entry fee on it.
And how did your dad do?
And so it's very gratifying to, since and my background in cruising and my interest in racing and I like to figure things out,
and become efficient, right? It's all about just squeezing out
efficiency and, and risk management.
Yes.
Risk versus reward.
Which is all that, that whole mindset. And so that became pretty addicting. And I kept on doing more and more races in the Single-Handed Sailing Society in the Bay Area. Great organization, great people, great much characters. Eventually, then I restored the rumble seat, my own boat, a 30 square meter over a long period of time, and won the single-handed transpac race on that.
Awesome.
And then my dad had the boat all the way till 2018 when he's still single-handed on that boat when he was 80. He would go out cruising around the Salmon Islands. He was 80 years old.
Good for him.
And, his health failed and he passed away, and I wound up with the boat after all those years. And I was just going to polish it up a little bit and sell it. And it didn't work out that way.
I know how that, but so much, not only does that boat have its own history, but has just an immense amount of history with your family, obviously, too. And so I can understand that, and I'm glad you have it. That's awesome. Back to racing, and I'm sorry about your dad, but I'm glad you have the boat, and that, and that carries on. With regards to racing, I know today's racing world is very different. Technology has just improved, or I don't know. Some people say improve.
It's gotten so much faster. Boats, technology, and performance has just
How fast were you going back then compared to how fast racers go today?
Oh, well, the boat, I raced around the world. I mean, of course, we cruised around and, barely moving, it seems like, by today's standards. And Improbable was a fast boat in its day. It's going to be faster when I'm done with it.
Yeah.
But the boat I raced around the world, OceanPlanet, so I raced around in just under 110 days.
Yeah. I can't even imagine. And
the average speed was like 11 knots or something.
Wow.
That is nothing.
That's amazing.
Compared to the boats now. But the 24-hour speed record solo is like 22 knots average speed for 24 hours. Or maybe even more than that now.
Now,
it's on a monohull, and the multi-hull it's even faster.
Right. And they have the foil boats now.
Yeah, the boats literally fly. They ride on foils, partly out of the water now.
But are this new technology and these faster boats, are they good for a solo around the world race? Do you
the ones they're designed for? I'd say the IMOCA 60 class, IMOCA International Monohull Open Class Association. That's and that class has been developed by the sailors themselves. They've been part of they're all members of that. I used to be a member of it. And so they all create the rules and create the stuff collectively. It's a development fleet, a development class. They get faster all the time, but they have put some restrictions and some things. Like they think the keel blades are one design now, and the masts, they can there's like only two versions that they have to fall into. But they've gotten so much faster, and they're designed for that. They are the dominant ocean racing boat for the round the world stuff. It's now the boat that's used for what used to be the Volvo race. Now it used to be the Whitbread, then it was a Volvo race, and they had far 70s and far 65s and different boats over the years for that. And now they're the IMOCA 60s, or that's a crude race with 5 people on board, and they're also going to for the Vendee. And the big races like the Route de Rhum or the Transat Jacques Vabre, all the big races, that's a huge fleet now. Right now, there's another race going on. It's called the Ultimes, and it's these giant. It's like the next thing past even the IMOCA 60s, which are incredibly fast. And now these guys are racing like these giant trimarans, like 120, 140 feet.
Wow.
Around the world right now. But as you would expect, these things go so fast that, I think there's only one that hasn't broken yet.
Of course.
And that's going around the world at an enormous pace. But you mentioned if they're seaworthy, are they good? But yes, and the faster you go, the less time you spend out there.
Right. Yeah. Less time things can go wrong.
If you hit something at the speeds that they're going, then...
Which is that, I hear these stories. I'm not a sailor, and I although I would love to someday sail to Hawaii with Darren, we've talked about that before. I'm also terrified at the thought. But one thing that really sticks in my mind all the time is all the containers that are out there now. Is that the same as it was back in the 70s, 80s, 90s? With just random containers floating around that you can run into.
They're supposed to sink, but some of them don't.
Yeah,
and some of them get lost.
So I imagine with these new materials
too, there's fishing nets and
just a lot of stuff. Obviously.
Yeah,
just
and
plastic.
Plastic. There's junk. Yeah, and unfortunately, you hit whales and stuff sometimes too.
Yeah.
I think the problem is the lightweight, high performance boats don't prevent much of a radar reflection, or in their case, sonar. Especially if you're heading at them, because you're just seeing the foils, which are invisible because they're so thin. So I think that they don't hear them. Seeing for them is hearing, and so they don't hear/see them. That may be one of the reasons why you hit cetaceans with some of these fast boats.
Well, now we've got
bad for all parties involved.
The orcas off of Portugal
that are taking out rudders.
They're attacking cruising boats, which is crazy. But
I don't blame them on one hand.
Well, I'm sure they have their reasons.
Have their reasons.
Oh, yeah. So when but back to OceanPlanet. Now you actually were involved in the design and build.
Yes, I work closely with the designer Tom Wiley and the builder Steve Rander at Schooner Creek Boat Works.
Oh yeah, Steve.
And he's a character.
Yeah,
he's a great guy.
Yeah,
and Tom Wiley's a great guy. So that was a real experience, creating the boat and our vision for it, what we wanted to do.
And this is an open.
Open 60.
The Open 60 class, right?
Or
at the
IMOCA
time.
60 class, and the name sort of changed from Open 60 to IMOCA when that organization.
But what was it like, though? I mean, you had parameters that you had to stay in and to try and eke out the fastest boat possible. What was it like in the design process, dealing with what you could or couldn't do?
Well, everyone has their own belief systems of what they think will work. And in the early days of the Open 60 and IMOCA 60s, just finishing was such a challenge, for a race like that. So we went with a skinnier boat. We felt was safer, easily driven, less powerful, but still very fast. And if our design concept had been fully realized in the year 2000, when Michel Desjoyeaux won and Ellen MacArthur was second, I think it would have done quite well. I think we could have been, maybe the boat would have been like third or fourth. So it was capable of being that fast, with the proper sales development program and me with the amount of training. But by 2000, I would never have been ready to go at that, even though I'd won the single-handed Transpac. I mean, it was a whole nother level. And so it was kind of good that I didn't get to go. And I wound up doing the 02 or 03 Around Alone race as my training race. I sort of flailed at that. I broke the boom twice and got things ironed out. So I was in there in 04, 05. And I was actually up there in the beginning with the boat. It was faster than people thought compared to the wide, powerful canting keel boats that were around at the time. It was reasonably well, but I fell behind a little bit and I needed to focus on finishing. I could have gone faster for a lot of it, but my inherent paranoia about noises and things and checking the keel, and there's lots of times I slowed down to deal with things, enabled me to finish.
Hey, yeah.
I got 9th out of the 20 boats that started.
Awesome.
And I managed to finish, and that, if I had pushed hard and broken something and not made it, I'd just been another failed solo ocean racing thing, which had been plenty of that. It's easy to fail in short-handed racing. It's not hard to do at all.
Yeah.
So that's good. But by then, the boat was, the wider boats were just so much faster, reaching especially. And those boats then are nowhere near as fast as the ones now. It's constantly arms race and increasing speed. And they learn stuff in design, learn what's possible. We are always learning. You think that humans that have all this stuff figured out ages ago, it's endlessly improving. And the design teams are involved, especially in the French. The French have dominated the development of these boats. They have so much design experience and so much sailing experience that they continue rolls over into new programs, and the money keeps coming in from the sponsors because it's such a huge sport that. They're fantastic machines. I got to sail on one of the foiler boats, the first, it wasn't the first Hugo Boss. Alex Thompson went through a number of Hugo Bosses, but we supplied the batteries to one of those boats. The first one he had, that was the foiling one, and it was one of the fastest boats for quite some time. And it was at Newport, Rhode Island. I got down there. It was a test sail day. They were testing out sails, a few people on board, and the thing was going. In 11 knots of wind, we were going 16 knots. And that's not even, not even the fast ones now.
That is insane.
So it's a whole nother dimension.
It really is. So now, obviously preparing for this race, there was a chance, maybe you were looking at the 2000 window, but you end up racing 2004, 2005. But it sounds like it just takes years and years of prep. You acknowledge you want to do, like, when did you acknowledge to yourself that you wanted to do this race, and then how many years was it preparing?
Following the 98, 99 Around Alone race, and following another American, Brad Van Loo did good in that race.
Right.
On balance bar. He was on balance bar. And that was pretty inspirational, connecting with him and some other folks. To be honest, it wasn't a lifelong dream of mine before that. Like some in France, they grow up.
Right.
As kids wanting to be
they're rock stars.
They raced minis, they raced, Figaro boats. They worked their way up the food chain, just like basketball in the U.S., right?
Sure.
This is huge farm league. They all work their way to the top. So I wasn't, racing to Hawaii was a big deal for me, and winning the single-hand transfer, that was cool, And then people were like, hey, you're pretty good at this stuff. Maybe you ought to go around the world with the Europeans. I thought, that's crazy. That's a long way. And they're like, well, I don't know, that is pretty cool. Maybe I would be pretty good at that. And so really it was just 98, 99. So we, started gunning for 2000, which was way too soon. And so it took, well, for one thing, I had to raise some money to build a boat. You know, you'd start and stop and raise more money. And then we, you know, just made the around loan 2003. It does take years, like you say. It's a long time of preparation. And even the top programs with lots of money know that they have to get it all lined up and get the boat out there and do some races and break some stuff and get them fixed up to really have a shot at, if they're going for the Vendee, which is the pinnacle of that class. And it's grown so much, that race. There's more boats in it now. The media coverage is grown.
What about in the United States? I mean, you know, the rest of the world pays much more attention to these types of races than we do in the United States.
I think there's a good following in the United States. It's more spread out. It's just more spread out because we're a bigger country, and you know, it's more concentrated.
I feel like racing is more East Coast. I may be totally wrong, but it feels like a Northeast type thing. Maybe that's just my ignorance from movies or something. I don't know, but yeah, I just don't. I'm not exposed to the culture as much. I love when I see a bunch of sailboats out there. Sailboats are beautiful to me, and I just love a lot about just sailboats and racing and everything, and I love learning about it from people.
More of a team thing in the U.S., I think.
Yes, I think
that is a more collective thing and
crew.
And maybe it's an economic reality that you've got someone who can own it, and then he needs a bunch of people to sail it with him, right? And so it's crewed racing with crew is the more popular racing. It's a different mindset. I think that our American, we don't identify with sailing as that big a deal for us historically. But when Eric Tabarly in France started beating the British, that was their recovery from Trafalgar.
Yeah, so like, hey, we're good at this.
He, the guy was legendary. That guy is a god in France, and now they have this whole system of great sailors who people follow. But they follow America. I had a great following in France when I did it. I went back to France like a year later, and I was walking in a grocery store. Yeah. And a woman and her daughter came up to me with like a napkin to get an autograph.
That's great.
That's so cool.
They recognized me somehow.
Well, you are a legend in the sailing.
It's kind of funny because we actually, I met you for the first time almost 20 years ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And the only reason I remember it is because it was embarrassing for me. But it was, and I believe it was 2006 maybe, at, of all places, the Strictly Sailboat Show in Philadelphia. I think they held it 1 or 2 years. It was so successful.
I don't even remember that show.
Well, I was producing the Latitudes and Attitudes television show at the time, and we were receiving video segments from cruisers around the world that we would put into our show. And so I'm at the Latitudes and Attitudes booth in Philadelphia, and Captain Woody comes up to me and he says, "Hey, Darren, I want you to meet somebody." And I turn around and he goes, "Darren, this is Bruce Schwab." And I shake your hand and I say, "Oh, Bruce, it's so great to finally meet you." Yeah, you gave me that, "What you talking about?"
That same look, it just took you right back.
And then I say, "I love those videos you're sending in from Venezuela."
Oh, what?
And you gave me the funniest look, and then you said something, and then I realized, oh, wait, you don't have an Australian accent. And then literally I go, "Oh, you're that Bruce Schwab." And then I was starstruck because Bruce Schwab from Australia had been sending in videos, and with his accent, and I thought there
was a cruiser named Bruce Schwab.
Yeah, I didn't even know Bruce Schwab from Australia. So I thought, and then I realized, oh no, I'm actually talking to a celebrity.
Yeah.
There's also a Bruce Schwab in Colorado somewhere who's a bike racer. Too.
Oh, nice.
Master's bike racer near my age.
But like you say, you got recognized in France, and for American solo racers, especially back then, did you find yourself a little more anonymous in sailing circles?
In general, but one time I was at Sugarloaf, the ski resort place in Maine.
Wow.
I think the year after, so again, I can't forget exactly when it was. And I was in the this the lounge lobby of the place. Was online, working on a computer, doing emails, and there's only like 2 other guys in there. Two people in me, and the only people in this place. Everyone's else out skiing, and one guy goes, "Hey, aren't you that guy?" I'm like,
"You skied over his foot earlier."
Some big redneck guy. I'm like, "Yeah." It's like, "What guy?" I said, "That sailing thing." And like, "Oh, it could be. I did race around the world." And the other guy, the only other guy in the room, goes, "Yeah, I saw that too on TV. You're the guy on TV, the sailing guy."
Wow. So cool.
So the 2 guys in the room knew. So I think that the exposure in the United States is better than people think. And I think if I'd had a title sponsor in the Vendee Globe and the first American to finish it, that they would have been like, "Yeah, we scored on our return on investment for our eyeballs and investment dollars." I think it would have been a win.
Yeah.
It's just, and after the Vendee, I went to try and get sponsorship to go again because I was being a competitive guy. I wanted to do it with a wide, super high performance boat, the next step up, and but you just couldn't get the message across. And we had meetings with bigwigs here and there, but never.
And then 2008 happened, and nobody wanted it.
Yeah, everything screeched to a halt.
We all fell off the cliff.
Well, going back to the Vendee, I'm sure you said how many days? 100 and...
Just under 110 was
So I'm sure there's so many things that happened during that time that were amazing. But tell me about the moment starting the race, just and how that felt for you. You're in your boat, everybody's there. There's years leading up to this. What was the start of the race like for you?
That's pretty stressful.
Yeah, I bet. Do you remember it? I mean,
Yeah, I remember lots of it, and but the one thing I really remember is those last few days of preparation. Even after years of going at it, we were still doing some stuff at the last minute.
Wow, sure.
There's still stuff. It's always never have enough money, never have enough time.
Yeah,
I mean, or at least we didn't. But there's of course you're up against other programs. The last few days, there's like no one on the boat. They're all done.
Yeah,
they're all ready. We're just gonna. So we had guys. I think we were putting solar panels on like 2 days before the start, and doing wiring and stuff. So it was pretty stressful, and I got kind of sick the first night out. I wasn't really seasick. I think I was just so stressed out, and fortunately conditions weren't too bad. It was a pretty mellow thing, but I got into the swing of it and pretty got going. So
were there a lot of people there gathered for the?
Must have been a huge crowd for the
launch, for the start.
Oh, you're talking like hundreds of thousands of people. It's huge.
How cool.
You can't drive into the town. You have to take buses in. The line up to get on the dock. It's even bigger now. I mean,
media everywhere.
And back in 2012, I went back to watch the start. I think 2016, I've been back twice to watch the start. And there's helicopters flying everywhere, and people start lining the long jetty to go out to the
So did you feel that adrenaline and that excitement of you're part of something huge here? I mean, I can't even imagine, so that's why I'm asking, but that just must have been, or you were outside of your body looking down and
now you focus on the task at hand. You feel the responsibility. You don't want to screw up, and you don't want to run into another boat, or
especially when you have like $1.7 million invested into your race and plus man hours. Yeah,
but
of course.
I had all my time and everything involved in there, and that makes it even more important, because when people, send in money or sit across the table from you and say, "Okay, I'm giving you this check because I believe you're going to do this. I believe you're really going to do this," and you don't get quite enough. Yeah, and you still have to go. Yeah, right.
That's rough.
I mean, all that project was still supported by a whole bunch of credit and credit card debt, all in my name, because the foundation I didn't own the boat. It was owned by a nonprofit foundation. Yeah. And I was doing emails during the race to our volunteer accountant to shuffle from one credit card to the other one to take the promotional, balance transfer thing, and to keep moving eggs in a basket, so. To keep it all together, because we didn't have, even though, over all that time we raised $1.7 million, over the course of building the boat and doing racing twice around the world, we spent about 2.1. So there was a big gap there that all, came to a head in 2008. Like, when we needed to sell the boat to pay the bills, and all of a sudden you couldn't sell a boat in 2008. But hey, that's not the only sailing racing story that ended in financial.
No, of course not. And you didn't half-ass it. You went out there and you put your whole everything into it, and I'm sure that's what your investors were looking for, and that's what you provided. And you finished. What was the beginning? Huge, hundreds of thousands of people, lots, and a big deal. What was it like coming in at the end? 100 and
wow.
Well, the finish is totally cool.
Yeah,
I mean, and it's all spread out then, so the crowd isn't
of course
big.
Yeah,
but it's amazing how many are there. And on my YouTube channel, I'd say search for OceanPlanet or Schwab Vendee Globe finish. You'll see we got a bunch of videos up there. One of them is a condensed version of a longer one we did with Rob Draper, who is a filmmaker in Maine, and we have like a 16 or 20 minute CD for a while. But there's a 4-minute version that's like the opening thing on the YouTube channel of the finish, and it's amazing. There's thousands of people there because the boats come in, months apart from each other at that point,
of course,
and they're just going nuts, cheering kids on the dock. The finish is mind-boggling.
Yeah. So is the finish better? It had to have been better than the start.
Oh, yeah. God, that's over. I'm never doing that again. But then
a lot of relief.
A little while
How long did that last? I'm never going to do that again. How long did that last?
I don't know, a few months. And then you're like, oh, I need to get a sponsor. Do it again.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, check out his YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube, look up Bruce Schwab.
We'll put a link.
Yes, for sure.
Right down here somewhere.
That just sounds amazing, and something that you've got to be just proud of that you did.
It's fun to relive it because that was a long time ago.
Yeah,
now.
Sure.
So it's like talking to you
20
guys. I
years
remember
ago.
20 years
it's like
ago,
exciting
almost,
to me to remember it all, but that was almost 20 years ago now.
Yeah.
And now you're not racing anymore sailboats by yourself around the world, but you're kind of still involved in racing though.
Oh, a little bit. I could do more racing. I mean, people would like me to race with them, and I wouldn't mind doing some. But I want to race Improbable. I want to go back to that. It's going to fill a space for me, and I'll race with other people. I don't need to do it solo. I might do a solo race or two back in the Bay Area in the single-handed sailing society races just for old time's sake.
Cool. Yeah.
But I'll race with some crew, do some races in Seattle. I would like to race to Hawaii again, do a downwind, burn like that, which is fun. That's what the boat was for. I mean, it's not as fast as OceanPlanet, not as fast as the modern boats, but it's still gonna be really fun to sail, and it has that physical sensation of speed.
Yeah.
And sometimes sailing a smaller boat's more fun. It seems like you're going
Can
faster.
You feel it more?
Yeah, you feel it more. It's a physical interaction of that. Sure. So I'm looking forward to that.
Have you ever considered the R2AK?
Yes, I've thought about that a lot, but you have to get the engine out, and that's kind of hard to do. We'll see. I will investigate that. I've thought about it a lot, and of course, I've always envisioned pedaling mechanisms off the transom.
Exactly. That's what I like to hear.
Yes,
that's a fantastic, crazy event.
We had them on the podcast.
Think I'm crazy for going solo around the world. I see some guy paddleboarding to Alaska. I'm like, at least I'm not doing that. At least I'm not that nutty. But I'm plenty busy with work now.
Well, let's talk about that.
I was a rigger before the around the world stuff. I worked at Svensson's, did his rigging shop for years, built that up to be I think the biggest rig shop on the West Coast during those years I was there.
One of the most well known.
And that was great fun. I enjoyed rigging, working with your hands, and I was one of the early guys to start using Dyneema non-wire ropes. In the 80s, I was using single braid Dyneema or Spectra, we call it, with Dacron covers on it, so you could hang on to it, and replacing wire lines. That was fun stuff. And now, of course, that's all they use on race boats. Yeah. But I became, through the course of spending a whole lot of time on a boat, trying to keep the autopilot running and staring at your battery monitor, I became sort of an energy geek, running the alternator to charge the batteries, watching the solar panel output, monitoring that, managing the whole thing. And that, and working, before I did the Vendee, I worked with Lem Dow, who's a great electrician in the Bay Area. He was associated with Svensson's off and on, and I learned a lot from him. And he set up the systems. I didn't know anything about electrical systems when I went to go race around the world. I was totally lucky that a guy who really knew his stuff said, "Bruce, I'm doing this because I got to make sure you don't screw up." And he designed a system, made it work. So I learned what a cool system I had. by racing around the world twice and going, no wonder he did it that way. You know, this is really good. That's why I got a 24-volt alternator. It's like a good system. And so I learned a lot. I became a geek about that. And then afterwards, I was doing some rigging work and some consulting, but got into another friend of mine, another single-handed sailor, Greg Nelson, was learning about lithium batteries. And he and I started talking about that and I started selling some simple lithium battery systems back in the very early days.
How early? Like when did you start doing that?
It was like 2010.
Yeah.
And then I learned that there was a better way to do lithium batteries that they should be done when it came to interfacing with alternators and regulators and how to really do these systems right, which would be at a higher level than what I started doing on it. And I met Alex Mavet of a company called Jenison, who was an MIT guy, and he was into sailing. He had a Mini, the little Mini 650, and he was into racing that. And so his dream was like to do the Vendee. And I had done it, so he was like, "Oh, that's cool." And then and my dream was like, "Wow, you're an MIT engineer? Oh my God, that is so cool!"
Mutual admiration.
He designed his own solar controllers.
Yeah,
because he would look at he worked for the solar car race team for MIT. He kind of ran that, so he would look at solar control and go, "That's not. I could do better with it." He designed his own stuff, so he was selling those. He started doing lithium batteries early in the day, and so I saw a system. I'd learned by having some batteries on some boats that you need to have protection relays and different ways to do stuff. And Alex like, "Oh yeah, we got this, we got that." Like, "Oh, wow, that's great. And what do you do when this happens?" So we got this. I'm like, "Oh man, that's great. Who's your marketing guy?" He says, "Well, we don't really have one." He says, "Who writes your stuff?" And I said, "Who does your?" He said, "Well, we don't have." I said, "I'll do that." Yeah. And so we started selling Jenison batteries. And I learned a lot from Alex Mavet over the years. And then eventually, the business got more complicated, and he wanted to focus on the solar controllers, and he gave me plenty of warnings. Says, "Hey, like I'm going to stop making lithium batteries, and so you need to find another manufacturer." And so I wound up talking to a lot of other people in the industry. We talked to some European stuff, Super B and Master Volt, and I kind of wanted to stick with the format, what we call a dual channel system. We can talk more about later about what that really means. And they were like, "No, you don't need that. We don't want to do that." I'm like, "Well, it kind of works pretty good." And we hooked up with Lithionics in Florida, an American company. They said, "Hey, we'll build what you want." And over the years, they were new then. Now they've gotten a lot bigger. And they do big production stuff, huge, enormous numbers for the RV market and stuff. And now they're like, "Hey, we're not doing custom work anymore, dude. You got to see." But we work together to develop the systems that we sell now. And for our high-end applications, they don't make small ones anymore. So, we for like the Nordhaven powerboats, the ones that want to go high-end lithium systems, that we use Lithionics, and we sell Victron. We're a Victron distributor as well. So anyway, I became a geek in this energy stuff, and I've been learning. I'm not an engineer. I didn't go to MIT, but I started working with lithium batteries very early in the game, and so I got a jump on a lot of people.
A lot of practical experience.
A lot of practical experience of how things ought to work, how they ought to integrate with other systems. And as other products have come into the field, as the whole environment has developed, like wake speed alternator regulators, which now talk over CAN bus with the batteries.
We're going to have Rick and Al on in a future episode.
Oh, great.
They'll come over and talk about
I communicate with them all the time.
Yeah, they're great. That's a great
they're
product.
a wealth of information. I drive them crazy, with tech questions.
They love answering tech questions.
They do. And they
fellow geeks.
Yeah.
Great support. Yeah. And I played a role between them and Lithionics in helping them do testing to integrate their systems. And at the MITC, at Marine Industry Trade Center there in Anacortes.
Oh, yeah.
With Mike Beamer.
Right, yeah.
We set up a system there with a Lithionics battery and wake speed regulator and alternator, and they were able to test it right there in the shop and
awesome.
the communication. So we played a role in all that, and it's great fun. I mean, I
imagine.
We talk about doing what you love and being in the business and working with people in the industry like Alan Rick and like my friends at Lithionics and Mike Beamer there, that facility, working and developing all this stuff. And and with Nigel Calder, who's now on board he guides us, and answers questions that we kind of embarrassed to admit that we don't know the answers to. Nigel, we can.
He's an encyclopedia.
Yeah.
Well, when did you establish OceanPlanet Energy? It was somewhere in that.
I was rumble seat rigging for a while, and then I was rumble seat rigging and systems for a while, and then we I think it was 2013. Yeah, I don't think we were in OceanPlanet Energy when I first started selling stuff like that. Yeah, but around 2013 we became incorporated, and I think we were at LLC for a while. Then we became an S corp, and
then we worked together remotely in 2015 because you were representing at the time the carbon foam Oasis Fireflies.
Yeah. And the technology an example of what can go wrong in today's industrial world.
Well, and that's what I wanted to ask you about that, because you set us up with your local guy here, and we got 4 Fireflies, and we made a video, and said we worked with OceanPlanet Energy, and that video is like, it didn't ever go viral, but it's got like 80,000 views, and it's still watched every single day.
Do you still have those batteries?
No, it was just for you and
the early ones that
well, that's what I got was the 2015s.
The ones that were made in the US.
Yeah. So
were really good.
So, and of all the product installation videos I've ever done, that one got the most comments.
Batteries,
because people thought they were too they were too good to be true. And so I'm constantly giving our real world experience. They're 9 years old, they're on this boat, they still work great. But there was a point in which the QC element of the manufacturing changed, and I think they changed countries. Can you talk, because you stopped representing them at some point?
Yeah.
Because our batteries are great. We loved them. We recommended them nonstop, and then something happened, and we stopped recommending them.
It's a long story.
Okay. What's the Reader's Digest version?
Story. Well, and Curtis Kelly, who was the original inventor of the carbon foam technology when it was spun out of Caterpillar. He worked for the testing and R&D department at Caterpillar, which is a considerably serious department, right? They did a lot of cool technology, and they wanted a better battery, and so he invented it. And then what happened was it got spun off as a separate company, and they had some investors, and they were going to they wanted to expand it, and they needed a bunch of money to do it, and so they, through some disagreements between investors, they had to get a bridge loan. Someone did give him a bridge loan, but he had the right to cancel anything that happened, and he got mad. And so the whole thing there was a big argument, and it didn't work out. And so they went into bankruptcy. And this guy swooped in from India and bought it because he was going to make batteries for India for, some motor scooters or something. And Curtis wound up working for them for a while, but they didn't get along very well. And then, and the manufacturing, which they're building up to do in the U.S., they decided no. They took all the stuff to India, and it took years for them to actually produce some batteries. And there was
backlogs.
I know they tried. I know they really tried. And we have to wait for batteries, and then a whole container would be bad. And you can't have them yet. That container was bad. And then we started getting more and more warranty stuff, and it just sometimes some people still have. And they got the good ones, and they're still going strong.
We're happy.
Fine.
We're happy.
We have some in our shop there from the original ones, prototypes made in where we were in Iowa or whatever, in somewhere in Illinois.
Yeah,
and those still work.
They're still great.
Going. And Curtis got so mad at the whole thing that he didn't get along with the guys. He was going to start a new company in Costa Rica to manufacture them outside of where the patents were effective. The patents that he wrote.
Right.
And then build up production, and then license to make them. Say the people from India, hey, we'll make them, and we'll just license them from you, and we'll take over. But anyway,
Yeah.
And he didn't need to do that, right? Because he's retired from Caterpillar. He's doing fine. He lives in Maine now. He has his own recreational oyster farm. And he's doing fine.
Good for him.
But he finally got it out of his system, and he's over it now, and he's having a good time. He brings us oysters by the freaking cooler full.
Yeah, nice.
It says, "Let me know when you want more."
Yeah.
And he's like, he doesn't worry about the battery thing. He's over it all. He's recovered. It used to be, he'd talk about that. That was his baby, right?
Yeah.
Steam would come out of his ears. He was and
it was a great product, great concept.
Yeah. Maybe they'll get it together in the
that'd
future.
be great.
I don't know, but
back then,
we
though,
recovered from that.
Back then, they were a really solid alternative to the expense of lithium in 2014. 2015 when
before
we installed
lithium
them.
got less expensive.
Now I'd be all over designing a whole lithium system.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with lithium now.
But back then they were wonderful. It was like between lead acid and lithium. They were.
So the cool thing for OceanPlanet Energy is trying to find stuff that's new, that's more efficient, that improves the boating lifestyle, but of course not jumping on board and getting too excited and selling something that's no good. So I love to go, wow, this is a great new thing, and blah 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 blah. Well, if there's any lesson in there, you better be careful and research stuff. It's the Firefly experience, because that cost us so much
much out of your control too.
So much warranty stuff where we couldn't get batteries and had to basically give away. We started getting Victron ones and stuff. And
oh my gosh!
So we're Victron's distributor now, but we're always keeping our eyes out and watching battery technology. It definitely is a bigger focus, like you say, is on lithium now because it's become less expensive. Lithionics is still quite expensive, but for all the high end big projects, having that UL 1973 listing and being basically bomb proof. Yeah. And for the big projects that can afford, that want the very best, that's the stuff for us. And for smaller boats, Lithionics is really not even doing the small form factors anymore. So, we do a lot of Victron stuff as well.
And Lithionics, they don't brand their batteries anything else. I mean, you don't find their product labeled.
No.
Okay. Yeah.
So batteries, solar, electrical systems. Obviously, this industry just within the last 5-10 years has grown exponentially since you were involved. Like I mentioned earlier before the show, my mechanic and good friend, Chris Dunn, a local teacher here at the boat building school and really talented with electrical systems. He's already done here in Port Townsend a couple smaller sailboat, but full electric conversions.
Cool.
Showed me everything. I was just blown away by multiple things. The main big battery. It's just like a box, and when he finishes with these conversions, these boats are so clean. Yeah, and he comes out of he's been working on diesel engines forever. So going from which he wants to get out of and just do electrical. It's so clean and so tidy and so just efficient. Where do you
artwork?
Yeah.
Good electrical work by good installers. No, we don't do installations. OceanPlanet Energy. We work with installers all over the country and some all over the world, internationally as well. You need those installers to do it, and they have to make some money, or they're not going to do it. Right?
Yeah,
so we quote things at retail, and then we'll sell to them. And our business models, we work with the client to help develop their system. And we do the design, we give them the initial numbers, and then we say, where are you? Or very in the process. So you need to talk to these guys here in installation. Then we sell through that installer, and they get a discount, and we provide the general conceptual diagrams and the consulting to make sure it all integrates together. That way the installer knows we're there behind them to answer their questions for anything new. There's new technology. But I really appreciate the work that they do, and we get pictures of it, and you can just see just the way the wires are led, the way it's all done. I mean, you have to meet all the technical specs, ABYC standards and all that stuff, but there's a visual aspect to it too. That to me, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's art.
I can stare
I agree.
at a picture, or getting on a boat, and some of these Nordhavens have been done by people we know, or other sailboats, and just look at it and say, that's like artwork.
Well, that's that's when Chris is done with a project, like that's what he does. He comes in and shows me his baby, and and just and you can tell a craftsman who is good at what they do and proud of what they do. And I love seeing that. I love seeing that passion. And also the move to electrical, solar, wind, all the
or hybrid systems.
Systems. Yeah. So I listened to you on a podcast, maybe it was last year, where somebody was asking you about, essentially when are people like Darren and myself going to be able to use electrical systems, not as a hybrid, but to power a boat like this? Like, how many decades out do you think we are from? I know, like my friend Chris, he maybe it was a 26-foot sailboat or whatever they did a conversion on, small sailboat, but like, how far are we out from
being all electric?
Yes,
pretty far, because
decades.
Your boats are heavy.
Yes,
they take a lot of force to move them through the water.
Yeah,
and your relatives, well, you do have some space. I mean, if you completely cover the thing with solar panels, and go really slow,
well, we're okay with going slow. We're not a racer like you.
But ideally, the boats that will be more suitable for full electric conversions will be designed for that.
Mm-hmm.
You need a low
from the
drag
ground up,
from the. Yeah, we've been spoiled by the enormous energy in a gallon of fuel.
Right.
The amount of energy in a gallon of diesel is astounding.
Yeah.
It is amazing stuff.
Yeah, I agree.
And we've been spoiled by it because we just use it. So I mean, the best thing in the world
take it for granted.
The best thing for the world is for fuel to be really expensive, because it is worth it. It is amazing stuff. And we learn our job is not necessarily to eliminate the use of fuel. It's to get the most out of it.
Increase efficiency across the board so that you're preserving your fuel for when you really need it.
When you have to move a boat for a long period, you kind of need to. I mean, there's electric. I don't know if you know the difference between a serial hybrid and a parallel hybrid.
No, I don't.
Like a serial hybrid is where you've got an electric motor and there's some batteries somewhere, and there's a generator somewhere in the boat that charges the batteries on the motor. The generator isn't connected to the propeller shaft.
Okay.
It's a serial hybrid.
Okay.
And a parallel hybrid is where, if you're going to motor for a period, the engine is connected to the pipe shaft's direct connection.
Okay.
That's the most efficient when you're motoring from diesel.
Right.
But you have an electric motor in there, and it's clutched on either side of it. So you can run the electric and turn the prop without the engine going, if you need to, for a period of time, depending on the size of your battery bank. And then you can also disconnect the prop and leave the electric motor attached to the engine, so you can use it as a generator to generate lots of electricity to put into your batteries.
Right.
So you can do it either way. The electric motor is clutched on either side of it. That's like a parallel hybrid. And that is really the most practical way to have electric propulsion for getting in and out of the harbor and doing short trips. It is less efficient to use fuel for short trips. The engine isn't warmed up. That's when the greatest wear occurs on the engine. There's those areas of time, and then to start it and get going. If you could use electric to get in and out of harbors, and then not have a huge battery bank, your big battery, the big storage is the fuel. Yeah. But you can do all the short stuff and save that fuel when you need to go a long ways or need to charge a whole lot. So that's the difference between serial and
today, with electric propulsion being the sole source for cruising boats like this 50,000-pound trawler, that's years,
our
decades,
kids or our grandkids.
So today, though, the focus or the concentration is more on house systems and battery banks and having enough power for cruising. And so you can maybe walk us through where we are today in terms of the most efficient systems that are out there, and even what you see coming down.
What do you want to run on the boat?
You mentioned other systems are getting more efficient, like refrigeration, which is the big draw, right?
Refrigeration is becoming much more efficient. DC fridges, that started coming in a number of years ago. Yeah. Of course, LED lighting is a huge change. Right. Because now if you look at an amp meter and you're used to LED lighting, you turn on an incandescent bulb, you go, what's that? There's an electrical short somewhere. That's what it is. You're just, you're wasting electricity on a filament. Air conditioning systems have gotten much more efficient. Like there's a brand called Turbodynamica It's an Italian brand of air conditioning. They're expensive for high-end yachts, but they have variable speed compressors. You can set a maximum level. You can use area controls, load shedding different times. There's different ways through engineering and through smart design, the amount of energy needed to live comfortably is becoming less. But the energy loads are still going up. And people now, everyone's got Starlink now, and so they can be online while they're out sailing. So it all starts. If you go to start a system design, what do you want to run? Right. What are the loads? And people will come to us and go, "Hey, I want to get a good system for my boat. What's it going to be?" I have no idea. What do you want to run?
How do you use your boat?
How do you use your boat? Yeah. What do you want to do?
That's what Chris is always hammering into me. You got to figure out your patterns and how you use your boat before you're purchasing these things, because you don't know what you need. And yeah.
And so we have, if you go on our website, we have a whole page on load on OceanPlanet.
OceanPlanetEnergy.com. Yeah.
We have a whole page on how to calculate your loads. Put everything into the spreadsheet, everything in there. Yeah. And then you can decide how many hours you're going to run it, or if you're not going to run it, on your battery power. And you come up with what your daily loads are. And then we go, okay, how far? Once we figure that out, we get a list. We get some idea. And no, it's all a guess, right? You hope the areas cancel each other out. Yeah. You have to estimate. But a guess is better than nothing.
For sure.
And then you go, okay, how long do you want to go with that before you have to recharge? And if you put a bunch of solar in, great, that'll help, and maybe we can get enough to cover your loads. But maybe not enough room. We'll see. But how long do you want to go? Sometimes there's no sun.
Yeah, we live up here in the Pacific Northwest. Sometimes there's no sun.
And we'll say 2 days. Yeah. I say, okay, 2 days. This is how much battery power you need to go for 2 days
on that load. Yeah.
Okay. Next question is, how fast do you want to be able to recharge that when the time comes to recharge? Oh, I don't want to do it in an hour. Well, how about 2 or 3 hours, for 2 days worth? Because that means your charging system has to provide this much amps to give you this much amp hours in an hour or two.
Right.
And that charging system has got to be pretty awesome to deliver, to put all that energy back in your batteries. And how you do that is, that's the next equation. Yeah. It's like, okay, so we also start talking about in terms of kilowatts rather than amp hours, kilowatt hours, because when you talk 12 volts, 100 amp hours at 12 volts would be 50 amp hours at 24 volts or 25 amp hours at 48 volts. So when you start talking amp hours, you have to be clear. What voltage are you talking about? Because, and you're talking kilowatt hours, that's the same kilowatt hours. A 12-volt battery, 100 amp hours, 1.2 kilowatts, 1,200 watts. So a 1.2 kilowatt hour 48-volt battery is the same amount of energy,
right?
But it's a quarter of the amp hours.
Right. And
there's real reasons in today's systems, what's driving the increase in voltage, the DC systems now being 24 volts, is pretty much established on big boats like Nordhavens. They're all 24 volts. But more and more boats are actually going to 48 volt, which is actually 51 volt when it's lithium, because you can charge faster. Yeah. To answer that second part of the equation is how fast do you want to put the energy back in, means you go to higher DC voltage, and you can take the same size alternator. One of the brands that we sell, Baumar, we sell American Power Systems, and these new high voltage alternators, the same size as a 12-volt one. They look exactly the same. I can show you a chart that shows the difference in kilowatts of the high voltage one versus a 12-volt one or even 24-volt one. And it's almost twice as much power in watts from the same size thing on your engine.
Right.
At higher efficiency.
Right.
Because at lower amps, there's less heat, there's less resistance, the cables can be smaller, the fuses can be smaller. There's all these advantages. Now, higher voltage also has the little caveat that it wants to arc across things better, and certain switches that work for 12 volts will just weld itself together at 12, 44, 40 volt. So there's the system design is a big part of it. But what's driving today's modern systems to increase efficiency is to really get the most out of that diesel fuel is more advanced energy storage, typically lithium batteries, and higher power charging systems, and 24, 48 volt systems now, so that you can achieve that goal of how far it is you want to go before you have to recharge, and then recharge as fast as possible. So it's fun stuff.
It's super fun. I mean,
it is really fun because guys like Alan Rick, we talked about earlier, they came up with the regulator that would work with higher voltage alternators in communication with the battery BMS. And you hear that word a lot. It's a TLA. You hear a lot, 3-letter acronym, BMS. And that's the brains of a lithium battery system. And some of the drop-in ones that are on the market don't communicate. So you can charge them with an alternator, you can charge with fast current, but if they're going to have a problem, that they get too hot, or you see your current, or the cells are imbalanced and they cut off, they don't tell anybody that they're going to cut off. And if you run an alternator without being hooked to a battery, you have a massive voltage spike before the regulator can fix it, and you can do some damage to it or smoke it. There's little devices in there that can help it, and there's little alternator protection devices that can help. But we try and avoid that problem to start with Victron or lithium batteries that talk to the wake speed regulators. And those guys got in the game ages ago. Al started developing this stuff on his own ages ago, and they spent years doing it. Now they're owned by Dragonfly, which is a big battery company, and I'm pretty sure they're helping them develop stuff in the background. There's a lot of stuff they can't tell you what they're working on, but that great product. Working with them, working with American Power Systems, working with Lithionics, all stuff working together to create these packages of integrated systems where you have the storage, you have the monitoring. With Victron monitoring, you see what's going on. You can tell what your alternator regulator is doing. I mean, we got by with all this stuff before, right? Well, I want a simple system. Well, if you become a lead battery geek, and pretty much all you need to do is watch your voltage, and you can kind of know what's going on, right? But systems are becoming more advanced, and you need to know what's going on. And now that boat owners have Teslas, and they're used to watching. Now they're watching their stuff, right? They're monitoring the energy.
Once you're used to it, you want it in your boat too.
Yeah, exactly. So that they want the monitoring, and they understand it. These boat owners are. A lot of them are engineers anyway.
Yep. A lot of boaters are geeks. We love our boat geeks. So now, have you noticed, just from, you mentioned Teslas, with the car market, the industry, obviously dumping a lot of money into it, which goes into, probably every aspect, but battery, advancements and so forth. Did you see the effect on the boating industry?
Not as directly as you might think. People go, oh yeah, Tesla batteries, you take those batteries and use them in your boat. Well, no. Those are 360 volt batteries with different type of chemistry.
Right.
In that market and the BMS for a battery is application specific, right? The whole control system that's in your Chevy Volt or in your Tesla was designed for a car.
Right.
And it's, if you take it apart and take that a 48 volt part of that and put it in your boat, you got to figure out how to control it.
Yeah.
Also, that chemistry, if it does catch on fire, it burns really, really hot, and you can't put it out.
Yeah.
So on boats, we use batteries that are slightly heavier per kilowatt hour. It's lithium iron phosphate. It's a much safer chemistry. And if even like the Lithionics ones, they've done testing where, in order to meet UL 1973, if you bypass the BMS and cheat and fully overcharge it to make it burn, it stays in the case.
Wow.
It doesn't go outside the case. Yeah. So
very important to boaters.
It's like that, and it reaches a maximum temperature of like 300 rather than like 1200 like the NMC batteries are in a car. So, and they're getting more energy dense anyway. They're becoming a little smaller, a little lighter all the time. Every year, like, oh, here's our new model. They've got new cells. They're getting.
Chris just handed me batteries the other day. I went into the yard. He's working on a boat that he's converting to electric, and he hands me a battery. And I literally went like that because I was not expecting. Like,
it's amazing.
It is insane how fast everything is progressing and super exciting. So if people go to OceanPlanetEnergy.com, they can find out what you're doing, but they can also research this and just kind of.
We try to provide some education in there. We have some links to Boat How To, because our partner, Nigel Calder, has developed with one of his partners, Jan, in Europe, this great educational platform with videos and lessons and modules on boat How To. And we really recommend that I wish I had taken Boat How To before I went around the world, right? But it took me a few years of sailing around the world looking at Lem Dow's system to finally get my head around what the heck was going on. But the Boat How To stuff that they do is really fantastic. And so,
what's the URL for that? boat how to.
Yeah, there's a link on Ocean. Right, it's on
Okay,
our, it's
so
on
go
our,
to your site.
Yeah, and
we'll put it right here.
Yes,
there
we
you
will.
go.
Right there. See,
That's right.
There it is.
Well, go to the link on the OceanPlanet site because then we get a little.
Yeah,
bit.
go through OceanPlanet Energy,
Right.
which
costs
will
you
be
the same. It costs you the same. But you also know we have seminars now. I mean, Nigel's famous for his seminars, and we're now going to host them in Maine, in Portland, Maine. Worked out a deal with a hotel and a place there, so you can come right to Maine, which is our stomping ground. And we're getting some people sign up for those already. So
when is your next seminar?
In April.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, coming up soon. We got people signed up for that. So
Darren, you want to go to Maine?
Yeah, let's go.
That sounds awesome.
And Nigel's he's been doing it for so long.
Yeah.
He has so much information.
Yeah.
That
he really is brought up often.
Yeah.
In our circle. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah, we just had Chuck Laguna of H2 Out on, and they H2 Out developed the fuel guards to go in the air vent line to keep water vapor from getting into your fuel tanks.
That's a good idea.
And that's one of the few products that Nigel endorses.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we keep talking about Nigel.
Nigel
keeps coming up.
I know.
He keeps coming
It's
up.
great. We're really proud to be associated with him.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And,
Well, and that means a lot that he's associated with you because obviously
Yeah,
he
he's very, very careful.
sets a high bar.
Yes,
know,
he does.
And I think we've sort of feel an obligation now to really. I'm always trying to learn. I mean, I didn't, like we talked about earlier, I did not go to college. I'm not an engineer. Like some of our clients are, full-on engineers. I'm supposed to know what I'm talking about. So I'm on some ABYC subcommittees that Nigel's on too, on like they're analyzing how to do the AC neutral to ground tie situation with auto transformers that are single winding instead of double winding. And I'm playing catch up big time on AC stuff.
He's speaking Greek,
and some of it is, and I get pushed to the limit on AC stuff. But I enjoy learning it, and we've knowing the safest way and getting Nigel's back up on that stuff is I feel the challenge to like. He's like my dad, It's like you want to please your dad.
You want to make him proud of you.
You want to make
right?
him proud of me. Yeah, exactly.
That's
it's a
cool.
challenge. It's not easy to impress.
No.
That's very cool. So now I feel like we're not going to get enough time with you. Maybe we'll get you back again sometime in the future when you visit our area again. But I do really quickly want to talk about a couple of your other hobbies or things that you enjoy doing in life. Bicycling, guitar, especially guitar. I have a deep musical background, so I wanted to ask you some questions about that. What is your musical history? I know you were given a guitar when you were young and just took to it. And
I started taking lessons when I was 9, and I took to it pretty quick. And then where we're cruising around, being a child, teenager in the 70s, I learned all the Peter, Paul, and Mary finger picking things out of the Peter, Paul, and Mary songbook and Bob Dylan tunes, and started hearing Ry Cooder, and then when I was in high school, I was taking in music class in high school, and a friend of my dad said, "Oh, you listen to Leo Kottke."
Mm-hmm.
And I listened to that, and I was starting to listen to John Fahey too. And Fahey was weird and unattainable. Fahey's not that hard to learn his tunes, but I listened to Kottke and went, "Holy moly, that's
eye-opening experience!"
I want to play that stuff. That's awesome. That 12-string stuff that came out, that first album we recorded with Tacoma in like 1969, that has the armadillo on the front, that black and white thing there. And most guitar geeks, they got that album.
Oh, yeah.
And no one ever heard anything like that. Just this driving, over-paced, just frenetic 12-string stuff. And I've learned to play a few tunes off of that. I love that stuff.
When we have you back, we're going to make sure you bring your guitar.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah.
So that's great. I discovered Leo Kottke, and I've been playing that stuff along. I play some slide, and I do a lot of open tunings.
Awesome.
Back home, I have like an 1890 bass date. That's my main 6-string. I have a really good classical and a really good 12-strings on my 3 good guitars. And my friend Neil loans me a guitar that I keep out here, so I got something to play.
That's great.
Right here, so that's really cool. That's fun stuff. My girlfriend Rosalie is a pro piano player.
Yeah.
So
have you performed live?
Oh, a little bit, not too much. I mean, guitar players are a dime a dozen.
Yeah.
I mean, if I wanted to really, get a job in a band, I would play the bass, right? But when we were talking earlier about living in Santa Cruz, I was playing guitar in Santa Cruz when I was, 18, 19 years old, playing in restaurants, and that was fun. But there were lots of good musicians in Santa Cruz, and I'm like, well, I can get paid more to work on the boat, so I better focus on that. So I played mostly for fun, but I do play every now and then with some friends, and
that's good.
And it's good. I'm working on some more YouTube videos. I'll have some. I've got a lot of tunes. I put some stuff up 15 years ago.
Oh, wow.
I got some 12-string stuff up on my YouTube channel.
Excellent.
And,
I'll check that out
there. But I have a bunch more tunes, things I want to do, and I'm working with. I'd like to get some horns. I'm gonna mix some guitar with some horn sections. And I've been talking to some really good guys. Guy out here, Keystone, who's an incredible sax player. I want to do some stuff with some folks back in Maine. So there's more stuff coming. I'll get around to it.
Good for you.
Cool.
That's awesome. Guitar is a perfect instrument for a boater as well, and a bicyclist. I thought I heard on one of your podcasts that you have like 12 bikes or something like that.
It's I've pared it down to 8, I think.
How do you
more
need that
bikes
many
than
bikes?
guitars?
Yeah, I know. I can understand 12 guitars, but bikes?
You need a road bike.
Okay.
And you need a mountain bike.
Yeah.
Preferably full suspension, because you're gonna go ride trails in there. You need
You got to have an electric bike with your. No,
I'm not that old yet. So I got I like passing people that are on electric bikes.
Right, the racing.
I've got a fat bike in Maine. You got to get a fat bike so you can ride on the snow trails. And that's so much fun.
Yeah,
that's a whole new thing.
Oh wow!
Riding down these, there's like little snowy. There's a thing called a snow dog. They groom these tracks. They're like a couple feet wide, and you're just bombing through the forest on this beautiful white terrain. It's clear and gorgeous.
So a fat bike is a beefed up mountain bike, right? Big old tires. Yeah.
Snow bike.
Yeah.
They're so much fun.
Yeah.
And you can ride them on sand on the beach. The wheels don't sink in.
Yeah.
So those are things. So you got road bike, mountain bike, fat bike. And then I race cyclocross, and you got a cyclocross bike. And with cyclocross, you need a pit bike. Because if something goes wrong racing in the mud, or you crash and break your derailleur, you need to go to the pit and grab your other bike. so you got to have at least 2 cyclocross bikes. And then since I'm out here on the West Coast so much, I got another cyclocross bike here.
Yeah.
And I got a mountain bike here.
Yeah.
And then back home in Maine, we've got a tandem that I custom built up. I think that's most of it. But that's like the starting point. You know, I mean, you could have more, but that's kind of like the basic.
That's really cool. I like how you're really into the things that you're into.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
You go ahead.
A passionate guy.
Yeah, totally.
Well, Bruce, thank you so much for being here. It was an absolute honor to meet the legend finally.
Good to meet you again.
Yes.
20 years later. And I'm not embarrassed this time. I didn't embarrass myself.
I said the embarrassing things this time, pronouncing the sailboat race incorrectly. So if people want to find out more about you, first of all, definitely I'm going to your YouTube channel and I'm going to check out some of your guitar playing and some of the other stuff you do in your life. But you can go to bruceschwab.com, which forwards to OceanPlanetEnergy.com.
That's that's our business site. That's the main site. For boating information and for figuring out your system loads or finding links to boat how to, OceanPlanetEnergy.com.
Excellent.
And ProjectImprobable.com is all about my current project with the restoration.
Can people support that project on your website?
Yeah, they just contact me through there and talk about it. I haven't created the boat's owned by me, not by a nonprofit foundation like Ocean Planet was.
Right.
But I'm interested in partnerships or people who want to race with me, and I want to control the project because I have a vision for that boat. But I would think that with my history of racing, and some people who want to race with me and do that together with me, and who are sailors, and you can either go spend a couple $100,000 on your own boat to go race to Hawaii, or you could Project Improbable and race with me.
I recommend the latter.
And so there's that. And then on oceanplanet.org is the compiled history of all the stories I wrote during the Ocean Planet adventure, from building the boat, from before building the boat, to all the struggles to raise money, getting the boat built, getting to the Around the Lone race, and all its stopovers, and then all the preparation in Maine before the Vendee Globe and the Vendee Globe. I wrote hundreds of stories that went out to our email list back in the day, and it all got lost off the internet, and I had them in a friend of mine has helped me with some video recording stuff. Wilder Nicholson back in Maine, he helped build that site up, and we got them all back online. All those stories.
Nice.
So that's a real nostalgia trip there.
When's the book coming out then?
Yes.
I mean, are you going to fall into a new passion at some point and write a book?
I don't know.
We think you should.
Yeah,
You've got so many stories.
Yeah.
You sent me a story. I think it was from that, right?
Yeah.
For one of the days on the race.
Oh, it was your
the
December 3rd, 2004.
You remember?
It was titled Wipeout.
Yes.
Oh, that's in the middle of the Vendee.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Was that Southern Ocean at the time?
Yeah, there's a few wipeouts then.
Yeah.
Of course, I didn't break the boom like I did in the Around the Line.
That one, yeah. You said at least I didn't break the boom.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just relived some because I remember reading those and oh my God,
Maybe someday
I can't believe you did that.
Brian Hancock is a great marine writer. He's a good ghost writer. He's written
Compile all your stuff.
To do all that stuff. But the story's not over yet, so
That's true.
Well, then that's the next book. But we would love to have you back on here, promoting your book, your upcoming
or bringing
book.
your guitar.
Well, we should do a guitar
guitar.
show. We should do
Absolutely.
get some more boat geek musicians.
There's some great, talented maritime musicians in the area.
We got a bass player on
bass player right
John,
next door.
On our
See?
neighbor
Now we're
next
talking.
door.
Yes.
So yeah.
I can bring a sax player.
Yeah.
The Marina Band.
All right.
There we go.
Good. Cool.
Well, Bruce, thank you very much for being on the show, and we wish you success and pleasure in everything that you're doing in your life right now.
My pleasure.
Have fun with Improbable.
Yeah. Let me know when you guys want to go for a bike race too.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
With my electric bike. All right, that is it. Until next time.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Take a look around here, surrounded on a ship of fools. Sail away, cross the water, set the pace, then discover every ocean, every sea. Forever and a day for you and me. Look around here, wasted on a ship of fools. Take my hand, just remember you don't have to surrender to the ocean and the sea. There's forever and a day for you and me. Here's to the future, I'm feeling stronger. We do belong here, look to the sky. Here's to the sooner or later, the ocean and the sea. Forever and a day for you and me. Sail away, cross the water, set the pace, and discover every ocean, every sea. Forever